So obviously I'm not Stephanie Williams. Thank you. But we are going to take a little bit of time to tackle some of her topic. Even though Stephanie could not be here today, she had a family commitment that prevented her from being here, and she wants to send her regrets, and she really was looking forward to seeing so many of you. So I do know that she would love to be here if she could. So I know that one of the topics that you all mentioned when Pam was reaching out and getting your feedback was that you wanted a little bit more instruction about events and what exactly you should be doing in your community and how to go about doing it. Many of you said you're willing to set up booths or go request presentations, but you just needed some help in getting started. So that's what we hope to tackle a little bit today. We'll do some of it, and then Stephanie will again get on a state captain webinar and do some more explanation and role playing in the future. So with that, all right. I will not do Stephanie's slides justice, but I will try. Okay, so hosting a community event. We have 3 phases of hosting a community event. Many of you have already done this in your own communities. I know you send us the pictures, you'll post them on social. It's great motivation for others to get involved. Planning, hosting, the follow-up. Often we forget about the follow-up. So we will talk a little bit more about that after. So the planning. We have talked a lot about the State Captain Meeting House. If you are not a State Captain already, you probably are saying, what's the State Captain Meeting House? So if you're interested in being a State Captain, one of the things we offer our captains is a private section of our website where we can upload more resources for tips and State Captain programmatic activities. So in this case, we have under downloadable resources an events tips checklist. So it walks you through the process of the types of things we're going to talk about today. So this is the State Captain Meeting House screenshot. If you are a State Captain and you're signed in to our website, it's the same sign in as your COPD 360 social username, your same email. We have behind the scenes giving you a role in our website that says you're a State Captain. So all of a sudden under Take Action, you will see now the State Captain Meeting House. You click on it, you get to this page. Under downloadable resources, you will see, it will come up and it'll say event documents, event tips, and we will make sure you get that document as a follow-up as well. But I really want you all to go and check out what's there available for you in the downloadable resources section. So that event tips checklist walks through and expands a little bit on some of the things we're going to talk about today. But it's a really good resource to just print out and literally use it as a checklist and walk yourself through. So the first step, of course, is selecting the location. We've talked about some of this already, but it could be that your county fair already offers a health pavilion or health exhibits, and you can ask to have a table on COPD. It could be your hospital lobby has different awareness days and they allow people to come and exhibit information about COPD. It could be your senior center and your library where you have to more proactively go to and say, hey, I want to set this up, can I do it? It could be a skilled nursing facility. We know that there are a great deal of COPD patients who are in transition from hospital to home, and they're at the skilled nursing facilities, and they may be looking for community volunteers to come in and do either just educational events where you give a talk, or just being at a table where you can actually just display the available information that we can send to you. Before I'll pause, have I missed any big locations that you guys like to do events at? Medical centers, I hear. Assisted living. Schools. VFWs. Great. Other people's health events. Yes, it's about infusing COPD into the conversation. So it does not have to be at all a COPD event. Churches, great suggestion. Okay, see there's, and Diane.
I've found that in doing health fairs, it's more expedient general health fair because the people attending there are interested.
Pulmonary health fair, okay. It's a nice idea. All right. So the first step, of course, is planning. After you have your location, make sure you ask yourself a few questions. Plan for your audience. So your planning is going to be different if your audience is more tilted towards a general public. Is your goal to raise awareness about the signs and symptoms of COPD to motivate them perhaps to ask their healthcare provider about the disease, or to have them tell their friend that maybe they need to talk to a doctor? Is that your goal of the event? Does the event, is it happening as part of an actual screening event where they're going to be respiratory therapists there doing spirometry or other screening? So there's the event tips document walks you through a few others, but these are the types of questions you want to start yourself off asking, because this is going to determine the types of materials that you have there and the types of talking points that you create. So then, education materials. And we've talked a little bit about this. I said we would come back. We do have a series of printed education materials, all the way from the spectrum of one-pagers that you can print out easily from your home, to the slim skinny reference guides that you can order as a state captain for your state captain activities. We are, as part of our commitment to the program, providing these materials for you and to use in your state captain health fairs. Now, if you're a respiratory therapist, we'd ask you just work with us and use the materials that we give you for your programmatic activities, not necessarily giving each individual one to other RTs in your hospital to use with patients. We'll work with you. Just tell us what you need. But the materials that you order through this link in particular are meant for your events and your programmatic activities. So Jane Martin is a great source to reach out to, as well as Stephanie, if you have questions about education materials. The event tips checklist does go through and suggest a table setup for your basic event, but when you have specific needs, just talk to them, reach out and tell them, and they will do their best to work with you and get you what you need in time. We ask, if at all possible, to give us a month so that we have plenty of time to place the order, get it to you, shipping in the cheapest way possible, and that you have enough time to read through the materials and familiarize yourself with what's in them, so that when you're at the event, you feel comfortable talking about the materials and making sure you match the person's needs with the materials. So, Stephanie's tips for a successful information booth. Arrive early. You can never underestimate the amount of time that you need, especially if you're a COPD patient. You want to give yourself plenty of time to find parking, to make sure that someone can help you with the materials and getting set up, navigating if it's a hospital where you're going to go. So definitely arrive early. Bring hand sanitizer for yourself and some wrapped candies or mints or anything as a giveaway. We always try to make sure we bring a hand sanitizer for the table too, especially if it's a screening event. Relax, smile, greet people with, "Hi, have you ever heard of COPD?" or "Hello, do you know anyone with COPD?" Because what we found is that almost everyone says, "Yeah, I think I've heard of that," or "Yeah, my aunt has that," or "I knew my grandfather or a friend," and it really does start the conversation off right. If they know they have COPD, sometimes you'll be surprised, and they'll respond, "Yeah, actually, I have that." But they didn't necessarily come up to you to talk about it, but you ask them as they're passing by, and they say, yeah, I have that. Well, so if they know they have COPD, ask them if they've ever read any of the materials. Point out the foundation's contact information if they're looking to get more information, and especially if they don't want to take with them the materials, you can tell them they can go online, they can find them there. And then encourage people to take the materials to other people if indeed they're saying, "Oh yeah, my grandfather has COPD," or "my cousin," or "my friend." Say, you can take this postcard, you can take this fact sheet to them, and spread the word, because we talked a little bit about the challenges with dissemination. We don't have a mass marketing budgets. We rely on word of mouth for one person telling another that the foundation is out there. If they aren't, especially if they aren't big users of the internet and they aren't Googling and really proactively seeking out the information, it's really through word of mouth and through all of you spreading the word through these events and others that people find us. So 6, take pictures. Ask someone to take a photo of you at your table. We love seeing your pictures posted on 360 Social and on the Meeting House. We think it motivates other people to get involved, and it lets us know that you've been out there in the community doing something. And stay positive and upbeat, most of all. We know it can be tiring at these events, and it's sometimes tough to stay positive, but you make a difference. Every person you talk to at these events, you make a difference. You let them know if they didn't about the signs and symptoms of COPD. If they have COPD or a loved one has COPD, you let them know there's a community out there, and that could just really change the course of their journey with COPD. So know that you're making a difference and stay upbeat and positive. Then the follow-up. So after the event, reflect on what went well or what needs to be different next time. We have in the State Captain Meeting House a form that you can fill out with some of this feedback to let us know about the event and to let us know if there's follow-up that you think we should do. So someone gave you their information and you want to pass that along to us and you want to ask us to reach back out to them for one reason or another. If there's something that you thought you wish you had, that you didn't have, give us that feedback. We might not always be able to address it, but we will certainly do our best. So this is reporting the event in the Meeting House, and then take a minute to make a post in the discussion board in the Meeting House to let your fellow state captains know what you did and what went well and what you would do different next time, because chances are there's someone amongst the group who is wondering that very same thing and could learn from your experiences when they try to have an event. Share your photo on 360 Social. So the difference between the discussion board in the Meeting House and 360 Social is that if you make a post in the Meeting House discussion board, that should be where you're talking to your fellow state captains about a state captain activity to give them advice on what they could do in their own community. The 360 Social is the main activity feed on our website, and that's where we want you to go and share a picture and say, hey, I was out today talking to so-and-so about COPD. And just, it's very motivating for the community to see you all out there talking and interacting with others about COPD. So very important, and this is something we'll talk about with your Hill visits as well, send a thank you note to the host organization. It's never a bad thing to reach back out to those who set up the event, let them know that you found it valuable, that you appreciated it, and if they have it again next year, if it's a regular occurring health fair, that you would like to participate. So please, ask them to notify you. So hopefully then it will become a regular thing and they'll notify you automatically when the event happens. So a few other things that aren't on the slide. One other follow-up note would be if there are media involved, you can always reach out to your local media to cover events. We've had a lot of success with local media covering Harmonicas for Health related events. Or if your health system is holding a big health fair, you might get local media there covering the health fair in general, and hopefully they'll stop by and talk to you about COPD. If you get that person's contact information, then you can follow up with them after the event. Say if you'd ever like to learn more or talk more about COPD, and let them know you're there for them. So I know that was really quick, and Stephanie would take much more time and show more detail, but if you need more information or to ask questions, this is our general email. You've heard us say it again, statecaptains@copdfoundation.org. We ask you to use that email for state captain purposes because it allows us to tag team amongst a couple of people to make sure that we get your responses. So that's why if you email that message, you might get a response from Stephanie or I or another colleague. So please try to use that email unless it's for one of us in particular. So I also worked with Stephanie to get a couple different scenarios, and I thought I'd use the rest of our time here to ask and put one of our event superstars on the spot, Michelle Collins. And if you don't mind, because you usually don't, Orlin, if I can put you on the spot as well. And ask you guys to come up, and we're going to talk a little bit about a couple different scenarios that you might run into at an event. I'll get you microphones somewhere, one right there. Okay. All right. So some of you said, I don't know what to expect at an event, so we walked you through how to hold it, but still, what do I say when someone comes up to the table and asks me any number of questions? So that's what we're going to try to demystify here. All right. It's putting you on the spot, but I know you can handle it because you're out there all the time. All right. So what are the types of situations you might encounter when hosting an information booth? So, for example, an individual might come up to your table and mention they've recently learned they have COPD, but then say something like, the doctor didn't give me any insight into what this diagnosis means. What kind of information would you give to that individual? What would you say back?
Well, I'd pull out the piece of paper that says, what is COPD? One of our handouts, and just kind of talk about it a little bit, and reading right from the form. Typically, have I had anybody say that they don't completely know what it is? I usually ask for a little bit more, what do you think? Have you done any research? And pull that out.
Great.
I always have the pamphlets available or the handouts, like you said, and then I'll ask them, what do you want to know? What are you confused about? You know, because if they can tell me what they're confused about or what they don't understand, I can probably answer the question.
Great.
I also invite them to come to our support group.
Invite them to come to support groups. So if they're identifying themselves as a patient, let them know of a local resource that exists to help them out.
Yeah, they might not be ready for that yet because they still don't know what it is.
Right?
Right.
Well, the first thing they need to understand is that it doesn't mean you're going to die tomorrow.
Right, but we're in a public area, so there's only, we do have to have some kind of confidentiality. There's only so much information you can give when you're in a complete health fair situation. So it's not the time necessarily for that deep personal one-on-one conversation. And so just starting that conversation, giving them my card. I'd love to have this conversation with you in greater detail. I also am a Better Breathers facilitator. I teach harmonicas for health. I'm a respiratory therapist. I would happily have this conversation with you and help guide you through to connect with some physicians and clinicians that can help you better understand your disease process.
Great.
Such a way, you just said two very important things. You said you're in a very public area. And then you said your disease. That's not
Right.
something you might want to do.
Right.
You might want to say, you know, if somebody with COPD wanted to know more about it, they could contact me, and that you do maybe want to make it, especially if there's a whole bunch
Absolutely.
of people standing around. I mean, if there's nobody else within 50 feet, fine.
Absolutely,
But you
you're
do
correct.
want to be a little careful about who has the disease. It's always, I'm asking for my neighbor.
Right.
We're going to do one quick more role play, and then we're going to cut it off so we can go to break. But this one's a little bit of a tough one. So the scenario is the person comes up to the booth. They say, I'm a person with COPD. Obviously, I'm in a bit of denial about the disease. The doctor has told me that I'm in stage 3. I'm supposed to be wearing oxygen, but I don't want to be seen in public with that contraption on your face.
Best person to answer is one of the people wearing those contraptions on their face out there.
Well, my immediate response is that if you're not wearing the oxygen and it was prescribed to you, you're killing brain cells and body cells and everything else, and you're not doing yourself any favors. You need to be wearing the oxygen.
I think one important thing that Orlin said was if you're not wearing it, if it was prescribed to you. So the most important thing we want to remember is not to give medical advice, but to say you can talk about why you should follow the medical advice that was given to you by your doctor.
My big thing would be, well, how are you feeling? You're telling me you have COPD. but you're in denial. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. I'm not quite sure. In my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not quite sure why you came to me to admit this, because obviously something bigger is going on. How are you feeling? How are you feeling right now? Can I get you a chair? Would you like to talk about this a little bit more? And again, have that little conversation as to why aren't you doing the things that your physician has prescribed for you?
For me, I say, if you're prescribed oxygen, wearing it is what's going to help you keep the lifestyle that you're accustomed to. We think we're getting away with not wearing it, but people notice, that we're maybe moving slower, or, we have to stop because we're short of breath. And that, I understand the embarrassment. I understand that it's a pain to be schlepping around this extra 6, 10, 20 pounds, depending on what people are using. But, that's what's going to give you your life.
A lot of times I find it's not as much the embarrassment, it is that they can't do it or don't have access to it. They can't pull the tanks, they can't get them in and out of their car. And usually you can get to the root of what really is the problem. Embarrassment is usually the last thing that it is. It is what truly is the root. They can't get enough delivered. They can't get a concentrator. They need 5 tanks to get to this healthcare event and get home, and they can't put that in the back of their car and get it in and out. So really trying to get to what is the root of the problem.
And I disagree. I think embarrassment is a big issue.
That's what I was going to say too, Orland. Yeah.
In my case, I was totally embarrassed to go out in public and hang out with my friends with the oxygen on, and I tried doing it without it. My organs shut down, and I soiled myself twice on my front porch coming home, and that's when I decided, well, I probably do need the oxygen, and I never had that accident again.
It's powerful.
I think the number
One more comment,
Oh, I'm sorry. Me?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I think the if somebody came up to the booth, and this has happened during my events, that we validate them. Oftentimes, validate that it is tough to have a contraption around. Use their language that they're using with you, and kind of mirror it. But not include ourselves like, oh, I understand how that could be, because you don't.
Yeah.
Even if you do wear oxygen, you don't understand their story. Oftentimes, I don't see fear-based or guilt-based tactics working. Not once have I seen it work with any of my patients, both in the hospital or outside in events. And I do think embarrassment is a big deal, especially if you're coming from somebody who's worked all their lives and you're taking all that independence away. That's the one thing they want. You can't do that when you're not completely, when you're carrying a bag or rolling a tank around.
Yeah.
So validation, I think, is the number one.
It's a great point.
way to get there.
So we really need to take a break. So quick comment, Val.
For me, I rarely find that these things can be resolved quickly, so I do encourage them. That's really, really important subject you're bringing up. I think that you would really benefit from considering coming to our support group so that you can have a fuller discussion and you can see the range of people and how they've dealt with the issue, because there are many people there that have confronted it and come up with solutions that work for them.
Okay, real quick, and we're going to cut it off at that.
Yes, I'll be very quick. I tell them my father's story. Handsome, in his 100, he was almost 100 years old, and he was scared of it, pulling that thing around. But when I finally talked to him and he trusted me, we carried it around. And I'll show them his picture. Look at this handsome old man. But he's smiling with his oxygen tank, and he lets us do it. We went everywhere.
It's great. So share a personal story. Well, it's a great way to end. Thank you for our guinea pigs.